and welcome to our YouTube channel. This is Carey MacCarthy, founder and CEO of Startup Art Therapy to Rewire Your Brain, and we bring you lots of different information, insights, and advice on trauma and how to heal it using art therapy and the power of consciousness. So I am here to talk about the ways that we can heal racial trauma, 4 ways to heal racial trauma. I've been working with Native American tribes all over the country for the last 20 years, and I am ingratiated in the Latino culture, but racial trauma is everywhere, and it's global, and it's something that really deeply affects people and groups of people emotionally, psychologically, and physically. And last week, we talked about the impacts of racial trauma and how that affects people individually as well as the collective group. But this week, we're going to talk about the 4 ways we can heal racial trauma. So I'll just quickly go through what racial trauma is. So it encompasses the emotional, psychological, and physical toll of enduring racism and discrimination. It manifests in various forms, including microaggressions, institutional racism, and intergenerational trauma. And we need to be recognizing all of the different ways that it can affect somebody. And in my experience in behavioral health, working on the front lines in Indian Health Services with the U.S. federal government, and as well as bringing my art therapy trauma treatment trainings to tribal schools in tribes all over the country, I've gotten to hear a lot of stories, and I've gotten to see firsthand how this has manifested in people from not wanting to go out off the reservation and go out into communities, and not even wanting to leave their homes either. And sometimes, and having the impacts of the institutionalized racism where they can't find justice and having to take great measures to go out and try to avenge wrongdoings from racist hate crimes themselves. And then not even wanting to also the internalized oppression from different mixed blood groups of people to pure blood people, and the racism that exists within each group of cultures. And this happens not just in Native cultures, it happens in Latinos. I've heard that it happens in Black culture, and I'm sure it happens everywhere. So there's so many different ways that this can happen. I've been studying this for years. This is the focus of Startup Art Therapy, is really addressing trauma in underserved communities. So 4 ways that we can start to heal this. So cultural healing practices. This is very important because cultural continuity and bringing people in touch with their cultural heritage is proven in research studies to expedite trauma recovery. Having connection to one's own cultural roots, whether that be traditional ways or other things, that are healing. But not every culture is connected to their own traditional ways. So I found it very important for me as a therapist on the reservation to have a medicine man or woman on hand to be able to refer out to my patients who were wanting to seek more traditional ways of healing if they didn't have access on their own. And also, if people are, if what I've seen is 80% of people on reservations practice Christianity. So understanding that not the entire group that you're working with is going to be following the same healing path. So being able to have something available for them where they're at, meeting them where they're at. And storytelling, art, ancestral connection, bringing them in touch with who they are and where they've been as a person, as a group. And it provides avenues for processing and expressing racial trauma and within a cultural context, which is really, really crucial. So number 2, therapeutic interventions like therapy that can be a really important adjunct to bring in along with the cultural component. And if somebody who is from that culture, who can be culturally competent and include cultural teachings and traditional ways within that therapeutic context, is really important. But if a therapist is not of that group and they can't really, there's no way to be culturally competent. I cannot be culturally competent as a white person within the Lakota culture or within Native American culture that I'm working with, or even Latino culture, but I can be culturally compassionate and culturally sensitive and culturally aware. So bringing in therapeutic modalities that are culturally relevant and offer a safe space for individuals to explore and address the impacts of racial trauma is really important. And some of these things can be art therapy. We have a 4-stage chronic trauma treatment model in neurodevelopmental art therapy that rewires the brain from the bottom up and left-right integration, but also acute trauma treatment models, which for one-time events is really important too. So you can allow the trauma to file into the correct places and not get stuck in the brain and create that chronic fight or flight signal that goes throughout the body. So addressing traumas right when it happens is very important, but most importantly, with underserved communities, they're usually dealing with a chronic trauma. So EMDR, really effective. Eye movement desensitization reprogramming. Very similar the way it works, but that's a very important modality in healing trauma that's very effective. And talk therapy is good for circumstantial issues if you just need to get something off your chest. But if it's something more about trauma, it is shown that having a bilateral approach where two sides of the brain are being activated, engaged, and communicating with one another is really important, according to neuroscientists, after 25 years of traumatic stress research. And somatic experiencing, feeling how that is in one's body and releasing it on a cellular level is really important, as well as mindfulness-based interventions. So those are all very effective ways that can help with releasing racial trauma. But of course, find somebody that you can work with if you can. And sometimes just being in a community and having a community support group and talking about these issues and maybe doing traditional healing rituals within your group of people is really important. Or being led in a group of mixed race people who also have, you can create a universality, a commonality with other groups of people, say in urban areas where, there are people from the Middle East and people who are Asian and Black and Latino and Native, everybody together, they can come together and tell their stories. And that creates a really super rich important healing container for other cultures to know they're not alone. And education and advocacy. So educating people about the effects of historical trauma and the systemic roots of racism, it's critical for fostering empathy and understanding and normalizing their experience. And taking advocacy efforts to mitigate this and state and government levels and federal levels to be able to lobby the governments to make changes in policy and make people aware of some of the things that are happening that we need to change. So we have a lot of resources for healing, including my book, The Startup Art Therapy School-Based Arts Curriculum for Native American Youth in All Cultures. It's a facilitator's manual, but it's not just for the classroom. It's also for individuals wanting to heal themselves if they want. We do have an adult trauma treatment program that's going to be coming out online in the next few months. And we have trainings, art therapy, trauma treatment trainings for different groups of people. We just got back from the NICWA conference, and we are going to be working with so many different tribes in Canada and the US and even the Ukraine and hopefully beyond in other war-torn zones. I have a meeting today with somebody who works with a global organization bringing healing programs to children around the world. So we're going to see what we can do, how we can collaborate. So lots of different websites and organizations, and we will put a link to a bunch of resources in the comments below, so you can find some resources to help the people you serve or help yourselves heal trauma. So thank you for being here with me today, and mitakuye oyasin, get out there and heal the people, heal the planet,